to our community. When Congressman Reyes first came into office in 1997, we were actually losing soldiers from Fort Bliss because the base was actually in danger of shutting down. I was actually a freshman in high school at the time, and back then, there was a lot of concerns of, does El Paso have enough water to sustain just a big military base? And the Pentagon felt that no, that wasn't the case. And so they were actually transferring soldiers outside of Fort Bliss to Fort Carson in Colorado. And Fort Bliss is so key to our economy that would have been devastating. So when Congressman Reyes came in, he came into office, that was his #1 priority, was to save Fort Bliss. He got a plan of action together. He worked with community leaders, and he worked with the base leaders as well to see what kind of assets and investments the base needed to be a valuable asset to the military. So they improved training ranges, they improved the facilities. They really lobbied the Pentagon and said, this is a valuable base. People don't know that Fort Bliss, White Sands, and all that area is actually the largest unrestricted airspace in the country. We have a very valuable, and they can do that here. And when you look at the wars that we're fighting abroad in Afghanistan and Iraq, what kind of environments are they? They're desert environments. So he worked hard to make the case and said, we need to keep Fort Bliss. And not only do we need to keep Fort Bliss, but we need to grow it. And so that has been something that he worked on consistently. Then in 2005, the Pentagon decided that Fort Bliss was going to gain the most troops in the nation. And that was the result of several years of hard work. And you have to look at where we were from 1996 to now, is that we went from losing soldiers in 1996 to now we have one of the largest military bases in the country. And that's a big benefit for our economy and the ability of you guys to get jobs in other fields, not just the military, but in contracting jobs. That's going to really shape our future.
Thank you. And my second question is, could you please expand on Congressman Reyes' thoughts on the No Child Left Behind and other education reform measures?
Sure. Well, unfortunately, No Child Left Behind is kind of one of those things where, they're teaching students to teach to the test. And Congressman Reyes' daughter is actually the principal of Constitute Middle School. And he hears from her all the time how much, it's frustrating for teachers, how a lot of times they don't have the flexibility to kind of teach students sort of critical thinking skills. And I think that's critical. Something I can tell you is that, look, I went to public schools here, I went to Bel-Air High School. It was a challenge for me to go to a place like Georgetown University, and because it almost requires a different skill set. You have to really think about issues in a different way. You have to give thought. You have to read all these different books, and then they ask, well, what are your ideas about this? What do you think about this? Write a paper, a 20-page paper, and let us know. I think Congressman Reyes feels that we need to give teachers a lot more flexibility. We need to do a better job of funding our schools, I think, at the federal level, and I think No Child Left Behind is something that gives kind of a mandate for teachers in additional testing requirements, but doesn't really provide the funding to back it up. And so we need to do a better job of providing additional funding for that.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Tim Collins, you have a 2-minute introduction, if you would like.
Good morning. My name is Tim Collins, and I am the write-in candidate for United States Congress, and that's about the extent of what most of you have ever heard of me before. As part of my introduction, I'd just like to ask a few questions, beginning with the students. How many of you plan to go to college after you're out here? Terrific. How many of you have a big dream for what you want to do with the rest of your life? Graduate school? Professions? Anybody want to teach? Come on, raise your hands, please. That was always my dream. Now for the rest of us in the room, how many of you have a mortgage? How many of you have raised children? How many of you served in the military? Yeah, these are things I've done too. I'm not a politician. I don't have a spokesperson. I am one of you, and I'm running as a write-in because I don't have any of that backing. To get where I've gotten, I had to walk around El Paso and ask people to put their faith in me and sign a petition to get me on the ballot. I've taken the first step. Being a write-in candidate is not the easiest thing in the world, because you end up without a political party standing behind you. You have to earn your way on the ballot, and you have to earn that from the voters themselves, and I've tried to do that. I've learned a lot just to get here today, and I'm very happy to be here, because I need to talk to the people directly. When I was growing up, my parents, my father and mother, were both children of the Depression. My father served in World War II, and the most valuable lesson they taught me was, tomorrow matters. That's why you saved to pay for your mortgage. That's why you didn't have that second vacation. That's why your children went to college. So what I'm going to ask you to do, when you go in the voting booth, you're going to have to take an extra step for me. First, you're going to have to push the write-in button. Then you're going to have to enter my name off the list of write-in candidates. I appreciate you being here this morning, particularly the students. At 8 a.m. it's tough on a Saturday. Thank you.
Okay, first question. If you get elected, what will your plans be on protecting our border?
Yeah, the border question is always a tough one. I'm not so sure protecting is the right word. We're not faced with a military threat. I think what we need is mutual respect of our borders. I hear this question all the time. We talk about militarizing the border, fortifying the border. I don't want to live in Beirut. I live in the freest nation on the world, and I enjoy that. A border has two sides. I think if we're ever to make sure that our border is respected, we need the cooperation of Mexico as well. Building a wall, hate it, love it, whatever your position, it was done. It's not completed, but it's done. And it has actually served a purpose. Illegal crossings have been shifted geographically. There's fewer easy places to pass. We need to go further. We need to still patrol our border. But will we ever have a secure border if we work on it alone? No. Your house is not secure simply because you have a lock on the door. Your house is secure because you pay taxes for services like police, who will respond when you're in need. On the Mexican-U.S. border, and anyone who tells you there's no difference between Mexico when it comes to immigration and every other country in the world is crazy. There are neighbors. We can walk over and see them today. Mexico needs to step up and patrol its border as well, on the north as it does on the south. And it needs to stop encouraging her own citizens to disrespect our sovereignty and cross without the proper documentation. Once they're on our side of the border, we need to treat those people with respect as well, while we protect our own sovereignty and our own laws. We respect them, they will respect us, but they will follow our laws. Thank you.
Second question. Do you agree or disagree with the healthcare reform? Can you explain why?
I disagree with it. I disagree with it almost in its entirety. The objectives of the healthcare reform were admirable. We have 200 to 230,000 underinsured people in El Paso per Congressman Reyes at last year's healthcare forum. I spent over 14 years working for one of the largest insurance companies in the world in the field of finance, in the field of insurance, and I understand how insurance works. What they passed was not going to provide what they wanted, and the proof is in the headlines today. Just yesterday, they got a waiver for Jack in the Box, McDonald's, multiple large companies to put off implementation of the law we were in a rush to pass for a year. Why did they do that? Because those companies had said, rather than go broke complying with this law, we're going to abandon health care for our workers and make them go on a public plan that doesn't exist. So the plan is failing, it's falling apart by the pieces. It was a 2,000-page document. Anyone who tells you they read it is lying. I'm not even sure an elected official put pen to paper to write it. It was written by lobbyists. Had to be. There's absolutely no way that was written by an elected official. Healthcare reform is nothing more than messing with the insurance industry. Personally, health insurance, it's a financing arm and it's the wrong method to provide health care. No problem with life insurance, no problem with property and casualty insurance, they work. The model works. It doesn't work with health care. And what you're seeing today in every headline is the market responding to this law. Will we get better care? No. Will we get cheaper care? No. The bill needs to either be repealed, or suspended and reworked. 2,000 pages is too much when you add on the legislation to enforce it's going to have to follow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Round of applause for them. They